Hey folks, welcome back to another Data with Danny case study challenge. In this case one, case study 4, the data bank, and we're on to section B this time. Okay, so we've got some questions here about customer transactions. We're going to go through, for these examples, we're going to be just using this customer transactions table here. We're going to be manipulating this to get all our answers out. We'll be doing a lot of common table expressions, a lot of row number manipulation or date manipulation, all kinds of good stuff. Okay, so my data is working. I can query that table. Let's get started. Okay, question 1. What is the unique count and total amount for each transaction type? So I'm looking at customer transactions here. I can see these columns coming back. I'm going to be wanting this transaction type here, this column, and I'm going to be wanting to do some aggregations on these different transactions. So summing this amount and then finding the unique count of this table. Okay, so I'm going to select the columns I need. What I'm going to do is assume that there's no duplicate transactions in here, so I'm going to do a count star to find that unique count. Okay, and as I've aggregated these two columns, I need to go and account for that transaction type, put it in a group by statement. Okay, that looks good to me for question 1. Okay, question 2. What is the average total historical deposit counts and amounts for all customers? So in question 1, we found those counts and those total amounts for all transactions. What we're going to do is take that query, we're going to filter it for deposits, we're going to change our sum to an average, and we're going to group it by each customer. So if I start here, I want to go and firstly filter that transaction type to deposit. Okay, that's working. Now I don't want this grouping by the transaction type, I want this grouping by customers. So I'm going to change transaction type for customer ID. So I've got those total amounts. I will actually just want the average for these customers to work out this historical average. Okay, so I want the historical average of all of this. I don't want it broken down by customer ID. So what I'm going to do is put this into a common table expression. And I'm going to go and average the deposit amounts and then the transaction counts. Okay, fix a typo there. So I've got these two columns coming back. They're not aggregated anymore. So now I can go and aggregate them. And I'm not going to group by anything this time. I just want one value coming back for both of these columns. Okay, this looks good. What I'm going to do is give these some aliases. I'm also going to round these. So I want the deposit values to 2 decimal places because that's the numbers we deal with in terms of money. I'm going to round my transactions to no decimal places, like what is 0.3 of a transaction. Okay, that looks good to me. Okay, question 3. For each month, how many databank customers made more than one deposit and either one purchase or one withdrawal in a single month? Okay, so let's start off with that customer transactions table and think about how we're going to do this. Okay, so what I'm going to need to do here, I'm going to need to change that date to a month. I'm also going to need to then start working out how many of these customers, what deposits they made, what purchases they made, and withdrawals. So let's start changing that date, and then we'll think about doing some case expressions for these transaction types. So my months are going through, that's all okay. Now what I'm going to do is I want to work out how many customers made one or more deposits. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a case expression to count when this column is deposit and then when it's purchase and withdrawal in different columns. Okay, so I've used a case expression here just to change this value to a 1 if it's a deposit. If it's not a deposit, like a purchase or withdrawal, then also I want to call that 1, but in a different column. So what I'm going to do is now go and aggregate both of these columns so I can find that count for each month, for each customer, how many deposits they made, and how many have been purchase or withdrawals. Okay, so I've got an output back. I can immediately work out which customers have made more than one deposit. I can also see those customers where the purchase or withdrawal is equal to 1 as well. To filter this table, because we're doing the aggregates, I'm going to use the having clause to go and say meet the criteria for this question. So more than one deposit and either one purchase or one withdrawal in a single month. Okay, so I've got those outcomes coming back. What I want is for each month to know the count of those customers. I've got to do another aggregation. So what I'm going to do is put this into a common table expression. Then I'm going to find my months for my customers, and I'm going to just go and count those customers. Okay, that looks good to me. Okay, question 4. What is the closing balance for each customer at the end of the month? So this is a bit more complicated. We're going to have to try and work out what their closing balance is and then find the last entry in each month. What I recommend for this is actually just to take one customer, try and work it out for one person, and then try and apply that formula for everybody else. Okay, for this question, I'm going to assume that deposit means that the balance is going to increase. A purchase or draw means that the balance is going to decrease. So I'm going to use those to go and calculate what the total balance should be for a given customer. Yeah, so let's go and filter for one customer. So I'm going to just pick this first one. Okay, so now we also need to work out those months. So I'm going to go and do that and then order it by month so I can have a look at what's going on. Okay, so seeing this, I can see inflow, sort of outflow, inflow, outflow. So what I need to do is go and give these the sort of inflow, outflow sign. So where it's a deposit, I want to keep that as a positive number, but for the other ones, I want to change those to a negative number. So I'm going to multiply these by -1. Okay, I wanted to break up this query just so you can see what's happening here. So what I'm saying, when it's a deposit, I want to put it into just give the whole number. When it's not a deposit, I want to make it negative. So I want it here. So what I'm going to do is combine these two together. So I have one column which I can then sum up to work out the balance at any given date. And then we're going to work out what it will be for the last date of the month. So I combine those two columns. All I need now is just to sum this. So if I'm summing this, what I want to do is group it by the month, the date, and the customer ID. Okay, so what I've got here is I've got the sort of net balance. What I want is actually a running sum of these numbers. So when a client comes and looks at their balance, they are not shocked by seeing like -300. Actually, when you take into account the deposit they made, they would be in a positive balance. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this into a common table expression. Then I'm going to do a running sum on this balance column, and then I'm going to work out what the last row is for each month. Okay, so your running sum is very much like doing your normal aggregation. There's a couple of extra steps. So you want to specify an over. So you want to partition it by or order it by something, and you won't need any group by section at all. Okay, I'm going to go and add in a sort just here, just so it looks a bit easier. Is it a bit easier to understand? Okay, so you can see this is making sense. So 82, then we then take away 100 plus. Yeah, this looks like it's running right to me. Now I just need to go and work out what the last row is for each month. Okay, so what I've done here is added that row number. I've partitioned it by the customer ID and the month. I've then ordered it by the transaction date. And I've gone for descending here so that the last entry for that month will come up as the first. So it will come up as number one. So when I go and filter this for row number equals one, I'm only going to get that last entry coming back, which is great. Okay, so because this is row number, this is window operations, I can't run filters on this. What I'm going to have to do is then put this into a common table expression and then go and query that afterwards. Okay, so I've got all the components here. I just need to go and put in what the last day of the month is, which I can do a bit of date manipulation for that and just rename some of these columns. Okay, so I want the last day as the month as my date rather than this transaction month, which is saying that on the first day this was the balance, but this is the last day. So what I'm going to do is do a bit of date manipulation. So I'm going to add a month and then take away a day. Okay, so here I've gone and added my month. Now I'm just going to go and take away a day. Okay, so that works nicely. I'm just going to get rid of that column. Okay, one last thing. I filtered for this customer ID. I need to go and remove that now and hope this all works. Go with that and that. Yeah, I'm getting back for all my different customers across those IDs. If you have any issues with this, check for these partitions. If you partition by the customer ID, make sure you're grouping by the customer ID at all cases where you need to, and these should come back as expected. Okay, so this question is going to lean on a lot of what we did in question 4. So what is the percentage of customers who increase their closing balance by more than 5%? So we have all those closing balances, we have them for all the customers. What we need to do is then go and work out how we can compare the two and then see from there. Okay, so what I'm going to do first off, I'm going to get my result from a previous question, bring that in here, and then we'll start working out how we can compare last month to the current month. Okay, so I've got those closing balances for my different so I've got the closing balances for my different customers at the end of the month. What I'm going to do is again, I'm going to go and filter it for one customer, so we can take a look about how we want to go and bring this data together. So what I could do in this case is go and join this table with itself. What I'm going to do is then work out another column for what's the previous month, and then go and use those two queries to join this together. Okay, so from the previous question, what we did was we based our transaction dates based on this transaction month. What we did here was added a month and then took away a day. So to work out the previous end of month, what I'm going to do is take this date and then take away a day from that. Okay, so doing this, when I take this query and I go and join it to itself, I'm going to join end of month to previous end of month. So this column here will join to this cell here, and we'll get the previous month's value come back. What I'm going to do, put this in the common table expression, then I'm going to do that join so you can all see what's going on. Okay, so running that query, I'm going to get back a lot of columns in this case because I've got the same table twice. You can see here this closing balance here. This is that next month's closing balance. So I'm going to tidy this up so I can bring in these balances here. Okay, so I've simplified the query a little bit. So my customer for this month, this was their closing balance. Then for the next end of month, this was their next closing balance. So I've got closing balance for this date, and then I can say this future closing balance, which I can then do for my percentage increase. Okay, so that looks good. Now to work out, so now to go and work out that increase, what I can do is just divide these two and then work out with a case expression, did it hit 5%? Okay, cool. So I can see that percentage increase coming through. I'm just going to add in a case expression just to say, give me a 1 when it's a percentage increase greater than 5%. Otherwise, give me 0. Okay, so that's a 1. If you're not sure whether this is working or not, you can just go and copy and paste this into a new column and just see it there just to double check by eye that it's working, which I'm going to do. Cool, so we can find this for this one customer. What we want to do is find this for all customers. So I'm going to go and remove that customer ID filter, and then we're going to see that come together. Ah, okay. So division by 0 means that I'm trying one of these closing balance ones is coming back as 0. I can't really get around that other than just filtering them out. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I've gone and added in that filter so it doesn't equal 0. But I've got some issues going on here. You can sort of see that this is going a bit wild for all these different months. We're getting this same customer being repeated multiple times, and that is because my joiner's off. So I've joined on the month here to the previous month, but I haven't joined on the customer ID. So I'm going to go and add that in now. So I'm finding out some more issues here. So, for example, there was a large percentage. This balance hasn't really increased. It's just gone lower and lower. But yet, when we do the formula, it thinks it's going to be increasing. So then it gets flagged as an increase and then flagged here, which we don't want. So what I want to do is go and add in a condition here that just says make sure that well, the next month's closing balance is greater than the closing balance, just so I don't get these cases coming through. Okay, so what I've done here is I've put the bracket in the wrong place. I'm just going to fix that. Okay, so I've fixed up that. Okay, so I had my bracket in the wrong place there, which is causing this query not to work properly. But now I can verify that's coming through correctly here. Okay, so this should be enough for us to go and complete this question. Okay, so I've got a column here of my flags. I'm going to go and sum this, and then I'm just going to go and count this table to work out the denominator for this percentage increase. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go and put this into a common table expression, then call upon these to do this final calculation. Okay, so this is my answer, about 21%. It's going to be my solution for this one. Okay, another pretty lengthy query, but we've learned so many different techniques here to go and answer this question. This solution, along with all the others, will be on my GitHub account. Check back next time for more SQL challenge videos. Hope to see you there. Bye bye.